This is only the beginning of my true resurrection.
Arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream.
True resurrection.
So with NaNoWriMo coming up, I thought I was going to make a couple of videos discussing certain writing techniques that might actually be more harmful for your writing instead of helpful, especially since everybody is going to be so busy with trying to cram everything in at once. I will be making a video on the harmful effects of NaNoWriMo and how it can actually hurt your writing if you're not in the right mindset for it. Basically, the kind of pressure that you might be putting on yourself as a writer, especially when you're comparing yourself with writers who write, 8 hours a day, who've been doing it for X amount of years. Everybody has a different pace, everybody has a different writing style, and everybody has different techniques, which is what brings me to this video. Stop counting.
Do you hear something?
Yo, fucking power!
So one of many methods that writers on AuthorTube like to use are the counting and the sprints. Take what I say with a grain of salt, since I'm literally just coming from watching a live stream of writing sprints.
It could be harmful to the story if taken too far. That is an interesting topic.
And I was partaking in it for a little while, but I found that, especially for me, the writing sprints and the Pomodoro writing style is actually deterring me from getting writing done, and it's keeping me from getting more work done instead of the other way around.
Would you walk us through a typical day for you?
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late, and after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Till I'm finished.
Space out?
Yeah, I just stare at my desk, but it looks like I'm working.
Some writers can use this technique lifelong and it doesn't affect their writing. Other writers have a hard time keeping up with the pace and don't really want to fully immerse themselves into a story, especially if they're constantly being distracted, and doing the sprints helps them keep them focused for short periods of time, which is better than nothing. When I'm writing, I need to fully immerse myself into the world in order to be caught up with it, in order to understand what's fully going on with the characters, with the story. In order to follow what I want to deliver through my story, I have to be in that world and I have to be invested in that world. The sprints that I was taking part in, I noticed, kind of pulled me out of that world and pulled me out of the writing style, and were nothing more than just a distraction from keeping me getting work done. Now, bear in mind, I'm the kind of writer that I cannot sit down unless I have at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to allow myself to even be fully immersed, because otherwise I'm constantly looking at the clock, I'm constantly thinking about what I have to do afterwards and all the other work that I have to do and I have to get done that day, and it does not help the writing process.
Most nights before I go to bed, I will lay 6 strips of bacon out on my George Foreman grill. Then I go to sleep. When I wake up, I plug in the grill. I go back to sleep again. Then I wake up to the smell of crackling bacon. It is delicious, it's good for me, it's a perfect way to start the day.
Now, the writing sprints in the Pomodoro is definitely a good way to get back into writing. It's definitely a good way to start writing, but I don't think that it's a good way to keep writing. But bear in mind, there are some writers that claim that they use this technique throughout their career. I guess it depends on what kind of mindset that you have. I feel like if you're really wanting to be the career-oriented writer, you need to be able to set yourself longer periods of time in order to invest in that world. One of the reasons this is if you keep doing these short-term sprints, you're really only setting yourself short-term goals, and if you continue making these short-term goals, you're not really going to be able to grow to create long-term goals in order to get the more serious drafting and editing process done in your writing. This also might be why works tend to stretch on for years, especially if you're only working one draft, if you're only working two drafts. It's common for writers to go through multiple drafts. But if you keep approaching this bench as work, then you are going to continue to see it as work, and in the end, it's going to affect how you approach your story and how you approach the drafting and the editing process. Write like you want to write. My most miserable times in writing, aside from editing, because that's a whole other hell I'll get into another time, to go into it, just get so many words done. Just get so many chapters done. If you don't do this, you're not going to feel accomplished. And I tested this theory out in the past couple of weeks and just wrote. And in doing so, I ended up doing roughly 2,000 words a day. Now that is 3 times as much as I was doing when I was just telling myself, just get out there and write, because it's what you have to do if you want to go anywhere, if you want to publish your book, if you want to do anything, you have to write. It's really changing the process. It's changing my mindset and it's changing how I see things. And I'm kind of surprised that people aren't really talking about this. I mean, it's nice to do the live streams and to collab with other writers and to get together with people in the community and be able to share your experiences. And I'm not saying that we have to turn it into a competition of who gets more done, because that's one of the reasons I'm making my NaNoWriMo video is, like I said, it's a whole other problem. But a lot of writers I'm seeing on this platform are kind of like shying away from the topic of just enjoy writing. You don't want to treat writing as a chore. There are career writers who they have deadlines. They're the ones that have all of these goals that they have to meet because their job is actually on the line and it is work for them.
Yeah.
Money never sleeps, pal.
But you're not at that stage yet. You don't have to do these things to meet a certain deadline unless you've already been accepted by an agent, by a publishing company, and signed a contract. You can take your time and enjoy the process. And in doing so, you might actually get more done than when you are constantly approaching the bench, terrified of getting more word counts and terrified of your own writer's block and procrastination. Because from what I've experienced and from what I've seen, the word counting and the sprints are more of a form of procrastination than a method of actually getting any work done.
Are you cracking wise?
I mean, some writers don't want to be full-time writers. Some writers don't want to have a career. They want to have a hobby, and they're still going up to this like they have to write and they have to do this. And I think these are some of the goals that have already been preset by the community. The fact that if you want to fit in, if you want to do this, it's not necessarily stated out loud, but it is implied that if you want to fit in, you want to be more incorporated in the community, then you need to be more diligent in the writing process. Not only that, but you have to kind of share the similar mindset and similar techniques. And this isn't just with the writing community. This isn't with everyone in the writing community, but this is a mindset and a mentality that is in a lot of communities. And in order for that community to be able to kind of glue together, you have to share similar concepts. You have to be able to fit in some way or some form. And I know I keep making videos about AuthorTube, and I really don't want to keep picking on them. It feels like there isn't really any transparency on this platform and in this community, and I don't know if it's because of fear of reputation, which would be understandable, especially since most of these writers are to go for traditional publishing, and you can't necessarily stand out and kind of be the oddball out if you're constantly worried about your reputation. You have to constantly worry about your subscriber base. You have to constantly worry about the numbers and all of this stuff in order to appeal to said publishing company and said agent in order for success. It makes sense from a business standpoint. Setting aside some time for you to write every day, I think, is a good idea. But constantly splitting that time into little segments and commending yourself with each 136 words, 346 words, 570 words, it's really going to keep holding you back from reaching higher goals, because I know you got more in you.
We need more power! Connie won't panicles come, but give it all she's got!
Stay off of Twitter. Stay off of YouTube. Stay off of the TV. Actually sit your ass down. Forget the timer and just write. Most of the writers on here, especially if they came on the scene and they were newbies like a couple years ago, if you keep setting these small goals, you're never going to be able to get anywhere, and you're never going to be able to actually grow or accomplish any more than you are right now. But especially for writers that have been writing for a while and writers that are more serious and more career-oriented and you want to actually get down to business.
Let's get down to business.
we need to start setting ourselves harder goals. If we don't take ourselves seriously as writers, we're never actually going to get any real work done. If we don't take our work seriously enough, nobody that reads our books is going to believe it because we didn't believe it. We have to be the first ones to believe that our works are worth something in order for somebody to see that come off the page.
You are the chosen one!
We want to keep climbing toward the goal of becoming a better writer, and we want to keep, upping ourselves. Stop worrying about what everyone else is doing. We are our own best competitors. I think that author tubers really do have the best in mind, but at the same time, I feel like they're still kind of holding themselves back. Harder goals that we kind of have to face later on in our writing career. One of these days, I will figure out how to end a video. Not today.